Hey guys, it's Book of Katherine. So if you didn't catch my last video, we have been looking up the new meaning of the Whore of Babylon. Now that we know that Babylon in Revelations 18 is actually Beirut in the Mediterranean, Beirut in Lebanon. So, and we know that because of a bunch of things in Revelations 18. An incredible amount of things in Revelations 18 line up with what happened in Beirut. Just line after line after line in Revelations 18 lines up with what happened in Beirut on August 4th, 2020. And so knowing with what happened on August 4th, 2020, and also the things that happened after it, in like Isaiah 13 and Isaiah 14, of what it says that would happen after that kind of explosion, the destruction of Babylon, those things are coming true. The sulfur, the fires of sulfur, and the looting that would happen, and the people being killed in the streets. All of that's happening. And then the throwing in, the lots that'll suddenly be thrown in with Israel, and suddenly everybody being chummy with Israel and Judea and the sons of Jacob. All of that's actually happening. So on and on and on, all these things are coming true surrounding Beirut. And so knowing all of that, then we go ahead and say, well, knowing that Babylon is going to be Beirut, knowing that that is the area that's going to be part of the destruction. I mean, we know that Babylon stretches from Kuwait all the way over onto Lebanon. So that's the Fertile Crescent. That was ancient Babylon. So knowing that the area that was actually targeted, the ancient texts actually call it, Isaiah 13 actually calls it the nerve center of Babylon, which none of us knew. I didn't know. Obviously, I mean, this is all news to us, but the nerve center, I mean, the nerve center of Babylon. But honestly, like nobody in my circle, and I think I have pretty good insiders. They've been incredibly helpful with all of my research. We've been ahead on a lot of stuff totally unrelated to ancient texts. None of my friends knew about Lebanon that I know of, or maybe they just were unwilling to tell me, but we really weren't in on the whole. That's the nerve center of criminal trade and traffic, human trafficking. So that's definitely not on I don't think any of my friends are involved in, some of them are involved in not so great stuff or whatever, things that, other friends don't do or whatever, but I don't think any of them are involved in human trafficking. So anyway, so it's just now that we know about Beirut, now that we know that Babylon is Beirut, and we can look back and turn back to Revelation 17 and think, well, like, who's the whore of Babylon? And so I did that in my last video, and I was reading it and said, come, I'll show you the judgment of the great whore who sits enthroned over many waters. And I was like, well, because people are saying maybe that's the Statue of Liberty, and because we didn't know if Babylon meant, the United States or whatever. So now many waters makes a big difference. And I remembered seeing that there was a female statue on some of the skylines when I was looking at pictures of Beirut. And I went to look up who that was, like if I could find that silhouette again, because I'd been trying several times and couldn't find anything. Like, that seems to be gone now. This time I looked pretty much in earnest, because then I was like, oh, that probably looks like it's important now, and found that there was an Our Lady of Lebanon. And it turns out Catholic Church is huge there, and that there's a huge Catholic Church, the Hissan, I believe, Hissan, major pilgrimage happens to Our Lady of Lebanon. Our Lady of Lebanon churches all over the world. And that makes everything come true in Revelation 17 when it says that she sits on 7 hills. Well, that's true. She does in Rome. In Rome has 7 hills. And we talked about that. We talked about in the beginning. So anyway, what I want to talk about that today is going back, who is the whore of Babylon? Did the Bible ever talk about that before? It's pretty vehement. The Revelations talks about the whore of Babylon. And, if it's that vehement, is it the Madonna? Does it ever go back? So when I brought it to my friends, when I ended the last video, I went to my friends and told them about it. And they were like, well, let's go into Revelation 17. Let's dig into it. And so I started reading them to them about it, what Revelation 17 said. And we went through it and we dug all into it. And basically, as I was reading through it all with them and going back through it all, and it's long, tedious going through it all. Sometimes it takes up to an hour, and it goes through all the different things. But essentially, there's a lot of us on the line, and it's a lot to go through. Essentially, what we came up with, I was like, it sounds almost like it's talking about a demon in a way, like almost like a demon presence or something, or the fallen angels, because we've been talking about Enoch so much. I was like, it's almost like it's not talking about a nation. Everyone assumes it's a nation or a person, like a nation. I was like, the way it keeps switching different ways it talks about it, it's almost like it's not, we keep assuming it's talking about a nation. I was like, I almost feel like it's talking about an angel, like a fallen angel. It's almost talking about an angel. And I was like, well, if it's an angel, we think Madonna, we don't think of her an angel. And I was like, you know what? Wait a minute. This city goes back, not just, the city goes back the city goes back to ancient Babylon. The city goes back, the Phoenicians goes back way further. And when I first looked up a lady in Babylon, another different name came up, like Tyre came up. Another thing had come up first before I ever found Our Lady of Lebanon. And so I looked it up again, and guess what I found? I found Astarte. I found out that there is a goddess of heaven, and that's exactly what Madonna is. The Madonna is, and I know this because I was raised Catholic, Mary is taught to us as she is the deity of heaven. She's the queen of heaven. That's actually what this deity is in the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians, which had the city of Tyre, and Alexander the Great wiped out Tyre, and it was out in the, so they just rebuilt Beirut right next to it. And the goddess of Tyre, the goddess of everything, right there, that nerve center, the goddess of Tyre, the goddess for all the Mesopotamian region, for that nerve center, had been Astarte, also known as Ashtaroth. And they say, you know how when in the Roman and Greeks, they say that there's like a god like Apollo, and then he has different names as you go through, like Zeus has the name of Jupiter and all these things. So the other name for Ashtaroth is Ishtar. And I didn't know another name for Ishtar was the Queen of Heaven. Well, the name of Mary is Queen of Heaven. I'm like, and remember how I said in my other video, I was like, there's nothing in the ancient texts about any kind of Queen of Heaven. There's nothing about any Gebera being the Queen of Heaven. Well, it turns out there's plenty in the Bible about this woman, Ashtaroth, going against her a lot, about this Queen of Heaven, but actually railing against her. And I didn't know anything about that. So I was like, I better go talk about this. It actually turns out that the ancient text talks a lot about this woman on the top of the hill that's dressed in white. Because when you start looking at how these, they have statues of Ashtaroth, and Ashtaroth is dressed in white silk. If you think about all the Roman gods, Venus and all of them, they're dressed just like Mary. Long, flowing, white, draping dresses. I mean, that's all the Roman gods are dressed in these cloaks, just like the Pope is dressed in white cloaks. They're all dressed the same as Roman gods, or they're all dressed the same as Mesopotamian gods. Dressed in white, silky, just draped things, as Isis is, as Lady Ashtaroth is, the Queen of Heaven. So Astarte, this is Britannica. This is what they say, and it will probably be correct because this is their religion. This is the paganism that they practice, that these people. So Astarte, ancient deity. So Astarte, also spelled Athart, or Ashtart, great goddess of the ancient Middle East and chief deity of Tyre, as in chief deity of Beirut. Chief deity of Beirut. Sidon and Eilat, important Mediterranean seaports. Important Mediterranean seaports. Do you know how big that is? Like, this Mother Mary figure, Queen of Heaven, is sitting above a seaport. Like, that's huge. So Astarte is like the great goddess of seaports. Ancient Middle East, and important chief deity of seaports. Hebrew scholars now feel that the goddess Ashtaroth, mentioned so often in the Bible, is a deliberate conflation of the Greek name Astarte and the Hebrew word boshet, shame, indicating the Hebrews' contempt for her cult. Ashtaroth, the plural form of the goddess's name in Hebrew, became a general term denoting goddesses in paganism. King Solomon, married to foreign wives, followed Astarte, the goddess of Sidonians. Oh my gosh. King Solomon, when you research King Solomon and him changing into other religions for his wives, they always talk about Moloch and how he sacrificed babies to Moloch. None of them ever, you look it up. We've been looking it up. They never ever talk about Astarte, this queen of heaven, the goddess of the seaports. They never talk about that and then show them in white flowing white robes. And maybe that's why. Do you know even she has robes around her head, just like Mary? Later, the cult places to Ashtoreth were destroyed by Josiah. That's, I believe, one of the ancient text writers, one of the prophets for the Hebrews. Astarte Ashtoreth is the queen. I don't know. You'll have to look it up. Astarte Ashtoreth is the queen of heaven, to whom the Canaanites burned offerings and poured libations. Canaanites, bad, like bad things to babies. Burn them alive on metal hot things and drum the things louder so the parents can. Bad things. Astarte, goddess of war and sexual love, shared so many qualities with her sister Anath that they may originally have been a single deity. Their names together are a basis for Aramaic god Astargatis. Atargatis. Atar, as in Atari? Atargatis. Astarte was worshipped in Egypt and Ugarit among the Hittites. Hittites not good, as well as in Canaan. Her Akkadian, Sargon of Akkad? He didn't mention anything. Why was Sargon of Akkad? Oh, all about reason. Nothing about cults and babies. All about reason, of course. Just came to help take over the freedom movement, right? Where does his Bill of Rights come from? Sure. Her Akkadian counterpart was Ishtar. Later, she became assimilated with the Egyptian deities Isis and Hathor, a goddess of sky and woman, and in the Greco-Roman world with Aphrodite, Artemis, and guess what? Juno. If you think about the movie Juno, I was thinking about the movie Juno. How does the movie Juno handle men? It's really just a repainting of men as just like, you know what? He's just the stick that you get the sperm off of and you just move on. I mean, it really does repaint men completely. And I was thinking about it the other day because now that we are listening to, I have to listen to, I can't read as much. So now that I am listening to the Book of Enoch, which, by the way, it's funny, learning a bit why the reasons being given for why they banned it was too scary for the common folk to handle. Too scary. So it's left to the scholars to handle. Not that it's not legit. It's just too scary for us common folk to handle. Right. So it has nothing to do with whether or not it should be in the Apocrypha. It's kept by all the scholars, but the kings thought it'd be too scary for common people to handle. So one of the scary things about Book of Enoch is that, the angels just went to the woman and then, started killing off the men. So the immortals were always with the woman and just knocking out the men. And the more I think about it, how much in culture, ever since the 60s, has just kept on relegating men out. And Book of Enoch actually says that, is that together with the angels and the woman just kept making it more and more so that the men were just more and more relegated out of the earth. And if you think about it, I was listening to it just when I was getting on my makeup today. I was listening to 70s disco, and We Are Family came on, and I was like, like right in the middle of it, I was like, and all of a sudden, and I've listened to that thing at weddings so often. I mean, I'm a dancer. I've heard it at weddings. I've heard it at dances. People play it the last time. We play it at New Year's all the time. At New Year's, you hear it at New Year's at dance competitions. We Are Family. Do you know it goes, I got all my sisters and me. Where is the mention of men? We are family. I got all my sisters and me. Get up on ready and dance. No mention about men anywhere. We're family. I got all my sisters and me. We are family. I got all my sisters and me. It is amazing to me. I'm paying attention more and more how just men are just like just more and more relegated out and stuff. And there's places where they make men welcome, but it's not a pretty place that they take them. It's not enjoyable. I mean, we're definitely made to be together. We don't do well without one another. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't think I'd survive this illness without my husband. No way. Like, no way. So I wouldn't survive my illness. I'm too weak. That's for sure. I'm just too weak. I know that now. I mean, I was raised to think I'm just as strong as a man. I really am, and I'm tall and everything. So there is no reason for me to. I remember. You know, I was the fastest in my class in one of my grades growing up. I was just a super. There's no reason for me to think that I couldn't do anything a man couldn't do. You know, I was so fast. You know, da da da. And I remember it being weird. Like, I remember now that I think about it, when I got into junior high school, and I was like, what happened to all the guys? Like, testosterone kicked in. I was just like, why are they so tall? And then all of a sudden PE, but then they separated us in PE. And so all of a sudden, you know, it was just like, oh, they didn't compare, you didn't compare scores anymore. So you didn't really notice that they changed and their scores were all different. So it's really nice how they do that. So women can get away with thinking they're equal for a nice long time. You never notice that. Nope. There's things, but there's certain things that men can't do. Like, for sure, there was something that my husband, something came, and let me try to remember what it was. That's right. My husband was panicking about a problem. There are things where my husband gets panicked about problems at work. So every once in a while, he's like, I'm stuck. I'm really, really stuck. I'm stuck. And I have learned the things in his voice about, like, you know, the levels of stuckness. And because I can see the big picture, he's in that little corner, you know, he's in his little box. And I'm just like, you know, I'll just tell him, I'm just like, I'm not worried. I'm not worried because I'll know the level of stuck. So he'll get stuck 6 times a year. And like maybe one of those, one time out of 6, well, I'd be like, okay, you know, I'm a little worried. Let's talk it out or whatever. But the other times I'm like, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. And of course, you know, like 5 hours later, he's like, oh, I figured it out. I'm like, But, you know, because I'm not worried, he kind of calms down. Because if he gets panicked, you don't work as well. And so it's, you know, I just sit there and go, it's okay. It's okay. And depending on the level of panic in his voice, I'll just be like, all right, talk to me. And then he talks to me and he figures it out. And sometimes I just know to be like, go ahead, you know, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And that's what women are for. Like, we're really, really good at being like, okay, talk to me. Because we are good at emotions. We're really good at knowing, like, oh, there's the ding, bing, bing. Time to be worried. Oh, nope, not good. If you watch, I've been looking at photos of Nancy Reagan. Ronald Reagan was an amazing president, but I've been starting to look at pictures of Nancy Reagan. And there are some pictures of her with world leaders walking with Reagan. And he's so smitten with her. He's so smitten. And she's not good at, like, paying attention. She wants to pay attention one thing at a time. She likes to have her attention right where she, like, she doesn't like the press all that much or whatever. But there is one shot where she's coming down after a big meeting with some power players. And she's right at the center. He's off here, big people behind her. And I'm just like, that woman, I'm like, who's bossing that picture? And you see, finally, because she's in her element, she's relaxed, she's calm, and they're leaving. And you finally see her power just flowing off of her. And it's not that she has an ego. It's not that she's an elected official, nothing. But it's her power of just her expanded power, her feminine power, her power of just, they like her, but she picks up on everything. She's just sharp. She picks up on everything in the room. She knows people. She knows if they're lying. She knows if they're not. She's got their game. She knows everyone. And that's good. That's a good backup for Reagan to have. And she can be in a room and she just, you know, it's good to have a good lie detector in the room. Women can be amazing lie detectors, you know, and it can be a good or a bad thing because women can also be horrendous liars, and that's what's awful in the workplace. I often say this all the time. I'm like when something happens in the workplace and something goes awry, make sure, woman, make sure that when you get in trouble or when you do something well, make sure that you're asking for the same as what men get when they do something well or when they get in trouble. Like, it's a tough world out there today. And anyway, so there's all these things with men and women that I don't know. See, I went off. Anyway, I guess I guess because that is such a prevalent thing in society today is maybe a sign that, yeah, maybe sexuality. Interesting that trade and sexuality, she's the goddess of trade and sexuality. Well, maybe just the fact that, trade and sexuality, that's such a big topic. I don't know. Or the fact that I have F&D. I better go now. So anyway, those are my observations. Look up Astarte. It looks like Mother Mary may just be the exact same thing, since it looks like, why is the biggest port in the world, this massive port in the world, having Mother Mary? Why is it a pilgrimage site for Mother Mary? And why does it have, human trafficking going on underneath it? And why does it have 22 stories of Hezbollah underneath it? I don't think anyone knew that there are so many Catholic churches in Lebanon. I think you'd be shocked if you looked at Lebanon. Everyone tells us it's the Middle East, it's the Middle East, it's the Middle East, it's Hezbollah, it's the center of Hezbollah, and then there's a million Catholic churches in there and stuff. And if you even look, they say, oh, look, Mother Mary. This is what really gets me. They say, oh, look, Mother Mary survived the blast. And then it's all Photoshopped. They Photoshop like lava things over it. It's bad Photoshop. You know how they say, Dr. Phil, I can't stand him right now, but Dr. Phil used to love to say, they use bad stuff so that they know they can get the suckers. They use bad, on Nigerian love letters, they use bad typos so that they know they can get the really good suckers. That's what they do with these symbols. That's what they do with these Mother Mary and Ashtaroth things, these signs and wonders, is that they use bad ones that are very easy to figure out so that smart people don't go for it. That's what a cult is. They go for easy people who are desperate. And actually, now that I think about it, that's actually what these ancient texts say. These ancient texts say in Revelations and in Isaiah, it says that they target these evil people, and they target the weak and the young. They target the weak and the sick and the poor. That's who they target. And that's really sad, is that when you look at it, look at the movie The Two Popes. They're really, really rich, and they're sitting in a teacup room with the most richest, most wealthiest art in the world. The Vatican Bank had all the Nazi money went to it. The ones that they stole, it was the only bank that didn't have to open up the records. They have evidence that, people just stole the stuff, ransacked places, hid in the churches, because the Catholic churches were the only thing exempt from any Nazis couldn't go into Catholic. Priests were the only ones exempt from any search parties. And so as the Nazis could go in there, no search warrants, no nothing, perfect place to hide it all, went into the Vatican Bank. And so then you're sitting there looking at the two popes, and they've got all the European art sitting on their wall, millions and millions of dollars. They've got all these museums with all this art all over it and everything like that. It's the only church that has enough money to fight. None of the Jews have gotten any of their goods back from wars. Who has enough money to fight them fight them 75 years in court so that no one has gotten their money back? No one's gotten it back, and owns enough headlines so that they can actually do that, to make sure that they're not sympathetic. They actually can make it so that they never actually get their art back. And so that they're losing after 75 years. No one's had any of their art restored to them. They make a story, Two Popes, on Netflix, and it shows them, helicoptering over all the poor, every single community they're in Latin America. Whereas every single country they're in, the average wage is like $1 to $1.50 to $2. Every country, they're the majority holdover, where it's, the most they make in a country they control is $5 on a good day, $5 an hour. And every single town they're in where they control, 60% or more, is completely poverty driven with a super big cathedral in the middle. They just suck. You can tell they're the kings of today. They're just overlords. Absolute horrific. Oh, they're octopus. They're like the octopi or whatever. And, or how should we say, the lady riding the scarlet beast. It's no different than the pharaoh in Egypt. Perhaps worse. I don't know. They certainly have razed down everything. There's no vegetation left in the Amazon, and now they're torching up our skies, aren't they? Anyway, I'm tired. I should let you go. All right, love you guys so much. Bye. Please donate down below, and I'll try and get into more of the text later. Love you, Ashtaroth. Check it out. Bye. Just Google it. Google Ashtaroth and Our Lady of Lebanon. So, yeah, and Tyre, Tyre, Goddess of Tyre, Tyre.